All right. My name is Howard Eber. I am an alcoholic, and this has been one hell of a month. I got to know Laura quite well. Hadn't run into her before. Kathy did. And she's been guiding us magnificently through some really important stuff in this book, as she will do today. So I give you the last of the month. I give you our friend Laura.
Thank you so much, Howard. Hi, y'all. My name's Laura and I'm alcoholic. Hold on just a minute. I've got this recording notification in my face. There we go. Okay. Do y'all hear an echo? Okay, great. That's just on mine.
You're good.
Um, so we're in the middle of page 63. And what we've been talking about is selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of what's wrong with us. And that there's no way of entirely getting rid of self without some sort of divine intervention. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, we believe that divine intervention occurs through the process of the 12 steps. And the first necessary action to begin that process, after we have admitted defeat in the first step and been willing to say, perhaps there's something out there, maybe in step two, the first conscionable action that we take is this decision. And the decision is what we're going to read here. Says God, well, first it says we are now at step three. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to you, to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And then it says, we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him, which is like the greatest hook of all in the big book. And so what am I doing here, right? It says we were now at step three. And what we talked about extensively last week is the first sentence in the previous paragraph. When we sincerely took such a position, right? And what position is that? We go back to the previous paragraph, right? We had to quit playing God. So when I am in this position where I'm willing for a moment to say, there is a power and it's not me, when I'm willing to say for a moment that he is the director, right? Then at the top of page 63 last week, they outline all of these incredible promises that are sort of ongoing promises, which I love. Once I've placed myself in that position, once I have gotten to this state of willingness, I am now at step three, right? And then I'm going to say this prayer. And the prayer is incredible, especially for someone who's afflicted with alcoholism. It might be incredible for normal people. It's really incredible if you suffer from untreated alcoholism. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, right there, again, the most beautiful thing in my humble opinion about the first 164 pages of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is that it gives us nothing to push against ever. There's nothing to argue about, right? We get here, and if you want to say, I don't believe in a religious God, they put it right here, as you understand him. Cool. Right? If you get here and you say, I'm not willing to do the prayer, that's great. Don't say the prayer. We don't drag you kicking and screaming. We don't demand that you believe anything, right? There's no pitch, right? What we have is our experience. And so it says, many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, or whatever, God, I offer myself to thee. And I said you because there's so much writing in the text of my book. I needed somebody to dumb it down for me when I got sober. And so we crossed out these and thous and thys and put in yous and yours. And I offer myself to thee. Not just offered. There's more to the story. I offer myself to thee. Why? To build with me and to do with me, not as I want, which was the huge sticking point for me, right? Which is why We Agnostics was written, right? To build with me and to do with me as thou wilt, as you will. Here, God, I'm willing to say this line, this prayer, because my life is in shambles. Whether I've drank myself into Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm new and I'm just getting active and I'm saying the prayer for the first time, or I've been living in self-will, not drinking in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? That happens too. And I've burned it to the ground. My life is in shambles. And now what am I going to say? Here, take it. I mean, how much worse of a job could God do with it than what I've done? Right? And I don't have a lot of hope here. That's all I've got is hope, but it ain't much because I don't believe you yet. Right? I hope you're telling me the truth, but I don't believe you yet. And if I forget, somebody remind me to tell the wheelbarrow story. It's so good. Relieve me of the bondage of self. I think there should be a period there. Just relieve me of the bondage of self, and then we could just move on, right? Nope, that's not what we're about in Alcoholics Anonymous. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Not just that I'll be relieved of self, but that as a result of being relieved of self, I will be more able to carry out, to take the action that God intends for me to take in the course of the day. Here's the real kicker. Take away my difficulties. Also, happy if we put a period there. Right? Couple of things. Let's talk about difficulties. Go back to page 62, first paragraph, the beginning, selfishness, self-centeredness, that paragraph. 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We can throw in resentment. We can throw in pride, shame, guilt, remorse, right? These are my difficulties. I thought my difficulties were my bank account, my no good acting boyfriend, my misunderstanding me parents, my unavailable friends, people who wanted to hold me accountable for my sorry behavior, right? I see this as my difficulties. This is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is that I will be separated from self. That these difficulties that separate me from the power that is necessary to stay sober for 24 hours will be removed. The pride, the judgment, the selfishness, the fear, the resentment, the things that get between me and the necessary power to stay sober. That's a difficulty. Take away my difficulties. Why? So that victory over them may bear witness. It's not about me. Right here at the very, very beginning of the process. I'm not going to get relieved, right? For me. The whole point is I'm going to get relieved so that I can bear witness to those, right? Victory over them. And I'll tell you, if you've been sober for any considerable period of time, that's a real live thing. People that used to know you that interact with you now are like, what happened to you? You know what I mean? Well, I accidentally said this prayer, right? Take away my pride, my judgment. Take away my judgment. Because that's what separates me so often from you. I don't agree with what you said in the meeting. I don't think your sobriety is up to snuff, or I think you're better than me, or I don't like the guy you're dating, or I don't like your shoes. I don't really need much to judge, right? But that judgment creates separation. When I am relieved of that difficulty, I am better able to do thy will, right? Why is that necessary? If we go all the way back to page 19, at the bottom of page 19, it says, most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful to others. And then it says, our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. So that sentence manifests here on page 63. Right? My very life as an ex-problem drinker is in jeopardy until I begin the process of accessing the power that can change me. I am in the bondage of self without my permission until I begin this process with this prayer to tap into this power that can create that change, that can relieve me of that bondage of self. And then it says, so that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of God's power. I'm not drinking today. God's love. I'm comfortable in my own skin today. And God's way of life. I'm useful and happy. Right? This is the goal. This is what I'm striving for. Right? Sobriety, peace of mind, usefulness. And then it says, may I do thy will always. That seems extreme to me. I mean, always. I'm good with thy will be done. Just in general, thy will be done. I'm okay with that. I don't know why we have to drill down to the may I do thy will always. And that seems like a lot. But it turns out, and here's the deal, may I do thy will always? No. No. I will not do his will always. No one does. But when I'm surrendered and I have the gift of desperation and I want relief from my untreated alcoholism and I have a willingness to take the upcoming actions that are outlined in the text, I want to be in line with God's will. We're talking about a position that I'm taking. Right? And the position that I'm taking is, may I do thy will always. I know that's not going to happen. Right? But the desire, there's a wonderful prayer. It's by Thomas Merton, has nothing to do with Alcoholics Anonymous, but there's a line in this prayer that says, I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I think that's what this is about. I believe that my desire to want thy will be done, to want God's will in my life, to want to bear witness to those who are still suffering. I believe that desire pleases him, even though I can't pull it off all the time, even though none of us are going to get it right all the time. And then it says, we thought well before taking the step, making sure we were ready. Could you not have led with that? Right? This seems like maybe the opening sentence of the paragraph, not the closing sentence of the paragraph, right? Because I've already said the prayer. I was not an excellent student, right? I was not reading ahead. I was not studying the text. I was just doing the next indicated thing. So I just said the prayer. And then we thought, well, now I've already done it. Making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly, right? And utterly is completely, entirely, without reservation, right? That I could at last abandon myself utterly to him. I cannot. I can more today because I've got something besides hope. I have experience, right? But initially, when I was saying this prayer, was I abandoning myself utterly to God? Nope. I was doing the thing I had to do to seek the relief to get the relief that I was seeking. You said, say the prayer, do the writing. I said the prayer, did the writing, right? I wasn't about, oh, I'm going to live a spiritual way of life. No, right? I want to tell you this story very quickly. I love this so much because it's so much about the third step for me. There's this guy, one of my old timers used to tell this story, and I heard somebody recently that stole it, and I called her and I was like, hey, that's my story. If you're going to share it, I need credit at least 3 times before you move on. I was kidding, but there's this guy pushing a wheelbarrow on a tightrope across Niagara Falls. And there's this old boy standing on the side of the falls watching him. And he goes across and back. And when he gets to the side, he says to the guy watching, do you believe that I can make it over and back again without falling? I said, man, I saw you do it once. I believe you can go push that wheelbarrow across that tightrope over Niagara Falls and come back without falling. So he does, over and back. When he comes back, the guy says, do you have faith that I can push this wheelbarrow across the tightrope and come back without falling? He thinks about it for a minute. He goes, I guess so. I mean, I've seen you do it a couple of times. He goes over, comes back, and then he says to the guy, do you trust that I can push this wheelbarrow across this tightrope and back over Niagara Falls without falling? And the guy goes, yeah, I mean, I guess. I've seen you do it like 3 or 4 times now. And the guy pushing the wheelbarrow says, then get in the wheelbarrow. And I love that because this is my get in the wheelbarrow step, right? Don't look over the edge. Don't look at the falls, right? Just eye on the prize. But this is where I say, I'm in. What they told me when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I finally started following directions and saying the prayers and taking the action that's outlined in the book is that my life is no longer any of my business. And it has been, at the time, I was really offended by that. But I have to tell you that it has been the best news ever in my life, that my life is no longer any of my business. My life is full and useful and purposeful and peaceful a lot of the time, not all the time, a lot of the time, because it's none of my business. And it becomes none of my business. The beginning of my life becoming none of my business, the beginning of the relief of the bondage of self happens for me with this prayer, because it immediately is not about me. I'm going to take this action. I'm going to be relieved of the bondage of self. I'm going to begin to be in recovery from untreated alcoholism so that I can carry the message to those who are still suffering. Not so that I'll be happy or have financial freedom or so that my children will be well behaved, because God knows that never happened. I breed lunatics. Right? It's not so that I'm going to have career security. It's not so that I'll look cute all the time or so that I won't do anything wrong. The entire purpose of the prayer is that I will be relieved of the things that separate me from the power that is necessary to keep me sober so that I may carry the message to those who have not yet been relieved, period. And if I stay in that frame of mind, I am remarkably recovered from untreated alcoholism. Right? When I begin to get consumed by all of the other things, I'm immediately slipping back into that bondage of self. So I am supposed to be with you guys next week, but it is my granddaughter's 8th birthday. And so I told Kathy I could do these first 4 Mondays, but I am otherwise obligated, privileged to be doing that next Monday. I have thoroughly enjoyed being here, and thank you everybody for listening. I look forward to hearing from everybody. Thanks.